What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Looks like Miami has its new defensive back coach. Is it a cornerback coach? Is it the coach of the whole DBs? We'll sort all that out. But Zac Etheridge from Houston, Auburn guy, was the DB coach over there. Highly well respected, one of their more respected players in that program's recent history. Has a situation with Hugh Freeze. Him and Zac Williams move on. He goes to Houston. They have a very improved pass defense, probably their best in 30 years. And now he is reportedly a Miami Hurricane. We will talk about all that. Take your questions in the live chat. A lot to get to. First, some folks that you know where they're going. That is nowhere. They are all over the state of Florida. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in. Whoa, there you go.
Yeah, I think you tried to get me in here as soon as at the same time as you clicked it. Miami Angels Share Society says Cuban time, Miami time. Listen, guys, we were gonna head to the studio. I called D and I said, let's just do this now because I have a feeling this would have started way later if we didn't do it now. So just be glad we're doing it right here, right now.
No, and I apologize. I know we got to get better on doing on time. That's on me, but we're excited to get this thing rolling. Talk about Zac Etheridge. You know, this is someone who's had a lot of buzz for a long time. He was very well respected at Auburn. That's really where he made his name. He was an Auburn guy. Him and Zac Williams leaving Auburn was sort of a shock to the Auburn fan base because these are two of the more respected former players. Their positions had done well. They were very well respected as coaches, recruiters, dynamic people. So that was a shock when he left Auburn. That seemed like it was going to be his job for life until he became like a defensive coordinator or something. Goes to Houston. They immediately had their best pass defense in 30 years by some metrics. He got a promotion as of yesterday. It was reported yesterday in the Houston papers that he was the defensive pass game coordinator, whatever that is. That's usually a title you throw on when you want to pay someone more money and give them a promotion. Then Matt Zenitz from CBS, who's rock solid, reports that he is here for a defensive backs coach job. Is that the DB coach, right? He coaches all the DBs. Is he going to be a cornerback coach when we bring another safety coach? Still sorting all of that out. But the bottom line is this is a known name. This is a name that really should be in the SEC at Auburn, but for some sort of disagreement with Hugh Freeze that let him go, that had nothing to do with the performance of the defensive backs. And Miami is the beneficiary, pulling him. He has, the 1 year at Houston, and then he goes to the University of Miami, reportedly. But just looking at some numbers here, in terms of opponent passing yards per game last year, Houston was 22nd in the nation. You go to the year before, 2023, Auburn was, where's Auburn here? Auburn was 33rd in the nation. Of course, Miami has struggled when it comes to pass defense pretty much every single year since that prime Manny Diaz era when you had, the golden recruits, right? The Michael Jacksons, the Sheldrick Redwines, Jaquan Johnson, D. Delaney, right? All those kind of guys. So since then, Miami has struggled defending the pass. The most painful one for me was 2022 when you had, Coach Adai, who's now defensive back or cornerback coach for Buffalo Bills. Kevin Steele, well-respected defensive coordinator. You had Tyreek Stevenson, starting corner for the Chicago Bears. DJ Ivey, who plays for the Cincinnati Bengals on defense at corner. Cam Kitchen, starting safety for the playoff Los Angeles Rams. James Williams, who's now starting at linebacker for the Titans, but was a safety at that time. And Takori Couch, an experienced nickel. That team should not have been in the hundreds in pass defense as it was. So this is a position, an area that Miami has struggled with consistently. They've renovated, rejuvenated that pass defender group, the defensive backs, the secondary. You're bringing in Xavier Lucas, probably going to be the top-ranked defensive back in the portal when they do their new rankings, according to what 247 is saying. Zechariah Poyser, one of two safeties that's in the top 100 of the transfer ratings. Him and Dylan Thieneman, who went to Oregon, so top-notch safety addition. Charles Brantley, highly productive player in the Big Ten at Michigan State, who's going to be your senior, your leader of the group. Ethan O'Connor and Emmanuel Carnley, both top 10, top 5 young corners in the transfer portal, depending who you ask, both 4-star corners in the portal. Washington State for O'Connor, Carnley from Arizona, redshirt freshmen, long guys with a lot of athleticism. You have 4 corners with 3 years of eligibility between Frederic, freshman All-America, Xavier Lucas, highest ranked defensive back in the portal when it's all said and done, and then Carnley and O'Connor, 2 4-star corners in the portal. If he does coach safeties, Etheridge, Zechariah Poyser, throw him in that mix, who's a freshman All-America. So you have all those guys with multiple years of eligibility to be groomed, and now you have at least one of the coaches who is going to help groom that very, very talented, suddenly talented group of young defensive backs.
Yeah, and I actually remember I recruited a couple, myself and a couple other people from the agency had recruited some Auburn players, 2021 at this point. Roger McCreary being one of them, one of the corners. Smoke Monday, a safety. They had another DB over there, Nehemiah Pritchett, who was a 5th-round pick this last year for the Seahawks. And I remember them all liking and trusting Etheridge as a coach. I never dealt with Etheridge personally when he was there, when I was, recruiting these guys, but they definitely trusted him and they respected him. Now, that's not always the case when it comes to these guys. When you're recruiting these players, they tend to trash their coaches. Oh, they should be playing me more. They don't like certain things about them, and they're open about that stuff. But I do remember them speaking highly about Etheridge. So that's my one little anecdote with it. That I will say, because people are saying, well, what's the tie here to Corey Heatherman? How does this kind of fit in with the rest of the staff? I look at also the ties recruiting wise and in the areas, which is a lot of times when you hire position coaches, yes, the coaching and the development's got to be number one. But in terms of bringing the talent to the table, is a guy who's from Troy, Alabama, played at Auburn, obviously coached there, has recruited the South. Auburn, you're recruiting at high-profile players at Auburn, and you're managing personalities, because these personalities that you're managing over there are, a lot to deal with sometimes. So he's done that, right? And to me, you're getting more than obviously the coaching, but you're getting the ties to the area that he has, recruited in.
Yeah, and just to go over some names here that he has coached, you mentioned some of these, Pete. 2nd-round pick in 2022, Roger McCreary. 2022 3rd-round pick, Marcus Jones, who you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, Marcus Jones, a stud. I think in the year that Etheridge was there, I think Jones was maybe dealing with a shoulder issue. And I don't think he was 100%, but total stud.
2022 4th-round pick, Damarian Williams. And then this year at the Senior Bowl, 2024, so last year, Nehemiah Pritchett, DJ James, who Mario Cristobal actually recruited at Oregon.
Yeah, Pritchett definitely, he's one that I know he had a hand in developing there. You mentioned a couple other guys there. Who'd you say?
Jalen Simpson, DJ James.
Simpson, another one who was there for multiple years under his tutelage. So
DJ James,
Damarian Williams is a guy who was actually originally from Homestead, from South Dade, I want to say, and went up to Georgia for that's a Jose Duaso guy there, Pepe.
Oh, really?
He's with the Ravens. That. Yeah, he's a good player for the Ravens. So that's another guy there from the JUCO ranks. So that's a nice list, man. We're trying to find the amount of DBs that Miami's produced, and you've talked about this at length, D. You haven't produced high level corners and safeties out of Miami in the last 10 years, really.
Right. So let's go to Auburn. Some of the guys you're looking at Auburn here. We mentioned all those folks. Keontae Scott also, who I believe is either at the Senior Bowl or he'll be drafted this year, was someone that he developed. Look at Alabama. Cameron Pruitt from Mobile played a lot this year. Cole McConaughey, also from Mobile, played quite a bit this year. Mike Jackson, who was a few years back, but probably Miami's best corner that they produced, I would say. Would you say he's probably the best corner? I mean, he's starting in the NFL however many years in.
Yeah, I mean, Artie Burns is still playing too, but Mike Jackson's probably had a better career to this point.
Yeah, he's played better in the pros, and I think he probably, if we're being honest, he probably played better at UM too than Burns with the extra year of production. So, that's another one. I believe he's from Birmingham, right? Spain River. So that's your neck of the woods, Pete. I know you do a lot of agent work there in Alabama. So Alabama's been pretty good to the Canes, and I think the fact that you can get some more tentacles in there, the better.
Son of the Beach, appreciate you, man. Guys, remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel as we're pretty much reacting to this live, which this hire, as again, it's not official yet, but it looks like it's happening, as Matt Zenitz has reported. But does this not go to show exactly what you and I have been saying the last few weeks in terms of these coaching searches? This name was not one that anyone had really floated. If it had been floated out there, then someone correct me, please. But I have not seen this name really noted up until today. And as you mentioned, D, a guy who just got a new title at Houston as well.
Yep. No, he was promoted, right? We talked about it a little earlier. Defensive passing game coordinator. I just, kind of one of these titles you give to coaches you want to keep and pay more money. So he was a riser. I don't know what happened at Auburn. I've asked some people at Auburn. Let's see if I get some responses here when I check my text. But that was not something that was like, everybody was trying to get rid of Etheridge. The fans, when Etheridge resigned, were like, what is going on? It was right after Cadillac Williams resigned. Again, both very much Auburn guys. Etheridge played at Auburn and was very successful and was a scholar as well, an academic all-SEC guy, on top of being a very good player. So when that happened, everybody's like, what's going on? And it was a shock to people. It wasn't like, the secondary struggling. He got kicked out of Auburn in shame. It was not that at all. Goes to Houston, immediately gets a promotion after one season, which was, when you look at the stats, this was their lowest yards allowed passing in 30 years, right? So that's why he got a promotion. That's why I'm sure Miami had to pay a pretty penny to get him over to South Florida.
EJ doesn't seem to really like the hire, and he says the Jimmies and Jones don't mean anything if the X's and O's aren't on the same page. I mean, look, Miami had a defensive backs coach that was brought in last year because of the familiarity with the defensive coordinator, and that didn't necessarily work either. So, there's a lot of things that go into it.
Yeah, look, this is not all-star game, right? You don't just get the best coaches and put them all together. There needs to be chemistry. So this is kind of TBD. You don't have a lot of history between Etheridge and Heatherman, if at all. Now you're getting young guys that are rising, which is what you want. No guarantees, but when you give a coach who's proven, a lot of young corners that have produced, right? It's not like the young corner. So FSU last year, their transfer class was universally regarded as a failure. The reason it was, they got guys that never played football, right? In college. They were highly rated recruits, but they never played. They went to big schools and sat on the bench. With the corners and the safeties that Miami brought in, freshman All-America, Zachariah Poyser from Jacksonville State. So he played quite a bit. Xavier Lucas, second highest graded player on Wisconsin's team as a true freshman, on top of the elite measurables, 6'2", 200, 4'3". He's the highest rated DB in the portal once he gets regraded. Carnley started a bunch of games. O'Connor started a bunch of games, 4 interceptions. Brantley's a senior. He's played a ton of football and started a ton of games in the Big Ten. Picked off Dylan Gabriel, took CJ Stroud to the house. I mean, you name it. So these are guys that have played now with a coach who's had success. There's no guarantee it's all going to work, but you're giving yourself a chance to succeed. It's going to be very interesting to see a new DB coach, a new defensive coordinator with Heatherman, a lot of new DBs, some existing DBs, see how these fresh set of eyes evaluate all these players and, figure out where they fit. Nickel, safety, boundary corner, field corner. Are we even going to have those positions? These are all things you're figuring out.
Yeah, Anthony's asking if he's been anywhere else in the SEC other than Auburn. No, but he was at Houston before. And I said that Marcus Jones was hurt that year potentially, but I didn't realize it was back then before he was at Auburn. So Houston was his first, I guess you could call it, major job back in 2019. He was at Louisiana before that, and then Western Carolina before that, and then as a GA at Penn State and Georgia Tech. So he grinded his way up, and then obviously was at Auburn for a few years before he left. So that's the track record.
Yeah, I think it's at Western Carolina also.
I mentioned that.
Yeah. So, he's been around. But look, if you're coaching defensive backs, SEC is where you want to get the experience, right? There's not going to be a situation where you're dealing with talent you're not familiar with. Maybe you're used to asking guys to do different things because you're not going against the best receivers in the country. He is, right? Or he was. So he's used to that. And then a team like Houston, which is in the Big 12, a conference that historically can throw the ball, to have their lowest yards allowed passing in 30 years in his first season, and he instantly gets a promotion. That shows to me the ability to do things at other places. Because you get nervous when you get like a legend. Legend might be a strong word, but somebody that's an Auburn guy, someone that's beloved by the fan base, a guy that's a known dude at one school. You wonder, are they actually good, or are they just kind of, playing off the equity that they built at the school? But for him to go to Houston, so totally different conference, no ties, and immediately get a raise, I think that is a pretty telling thing. And then, of course, you got another raise right now, I'm sure, going to the University of Miami.
Chuck, thank you, man, for the support as always. 850 Kane said, I'm sure they're going to bring in another defensive line coach and another DB coach.
Yep. I mean, we'll see how it all shakes out in terms of the guys that they bring in and what positions they need. Like I said, I am very much wait and see and then evaluate when it comes to coaches, because there's too much fake news with coaching searches. Some more about Etheridge as a player. Caneville actually pulled up the tweet. This guy was a starting safety, team captain. I mentioned before he was all academic. He had a career-threatening neck injury in 2009, came back, and was part of that 2010 national championship team with Cam Newton. So when you wonder why this guy was so well-liked with Auburn fans, that's one of the reasons. And they're really upset. When you go back and look at the forums, because one thing I like to do is I like to go look at forums, right? Because us running Canes Insight, the biggest Canes forum, the biggest Canes community on the planet, 7 million posts and counting. Pete, actually pull up this thread just so you see how busy it is on the board. But because I like to look at threads, I like to see how fans react to certain things as it happens. Because sometimes, you get somebody or a player or coach and you're like, wow, this guy's great. Then you go back and look when they got fired from the other place, and people are like, man, couldn't wait to get rid of this guy. With Etheridge, really the response was, what the heck happened? Why did we lose this guy? Here you see CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts and counting. I made the post, like an hour ago. We're already at 4 or 5 pages. So yeah, if you want to really dig into the community, this is where it is. Jay Kane. Pull up Jay Kane for a second. One cool thing about this board too is you have people that have worked in personnel departments that are Canes fans that are their own type of insiders and have their own experience and their own connections, even though they're just posting as Canes fans. Jay Kane, someone I know personally to be very plugged in, very involved in the business. He said, there's probably a top 5 DB coach in college football, a very good recruiter on top of the coaching ability, no sugarcoat, no bias. That's legit, would be a top-notch hire. Again, someone who's worked in personnel and has a lot of connections in that world. So Etheridge is a guy who's respected, man. This is not a head scratcher. I remember him as a player vaguely just because I remember that team. It's amazing how much Cam Newton carried that team. But obviously it wasn't just a one-man show. They did have some help. But to me, I just look at trajectory. And the fact that he gets a promotion the day before he comes to Miami, that tells me they're trying hard to keep this coach.
Yeah, and I mentioned the Alabama and the South connections, but you get Texas also now as well, because he's been at Houston multiple times. So it's an area that you don't really, where is that pipeline right now on the staff?
Yeah, and that's something people have been screaming for us to get more into Texas. Now, Miami's had great players from Texas this past year, but they were
Damian Martinez or Elijah Arroyo.
There's a guy in Cam Ward who's pretty good as well.
Cam Ward.
Right. So, Texas has been good to Miami, but not so much in the recruiting classes that Cristobal's put together. I don't think that's by design. I don't think Morrow is shying away from Texas players. It's just how it's worked out. Texas itself has been recruiting pretty good lately. So they're getting more of the cream of the crop than they've had in the past. But these are guys you want to get. You want to get a secondary that looks more like what Texas had than what Miami had. You have the ability to go into Texas. And look, not only the guys that are in Texas, Longhorns are not the only defensive backs in Texas. They may get the first pick, but that doesn't mean they always get the right pick. We've seen so many great defensive backs leave that state. They got Christian Gonzalez, who went to Colorado and then Oregon. I believe he's from the Dallas area, arguably the best cornerback in the country. Look to get guys like that coming to the University of Miami.
So you want to look at some Senior Bowl stuff, D?
Well, let's pick the Beacon Adjusters player of the day, right? And this is not going to be a prospect. This is going to be someone who's showing out at the Senior Bowl, somebody who I truly believe is going to be the best tight end in this draft. And look, I understand that this is a loaded tight end draft. You're talking about Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Mason Taylor, Harold Fandon from Bowling Green. But I truly believe the best tight end in this draft, when we go back and look at it, is going to be this man right here, Elijah Arroyo. And this is today. So Senior Bowl, he goes out and does what he does, running routes like a receiver. Look at the size. He measured in about 6'5", 250. There's a bunch of tweets, Pete. Pull up some tweets while we're talking. I can send some to the board.
I'll pull it up.
But a lot of people saying that this guy is not only the best tight end in attendance, but I'm seeing people say that he is the best skill position player in attendance at the Senior Day or Senior Bowl. And that's after measuring very well. So the measurement went well. The performance day one, which Pete, you've been to the Senior Bowl. So like if you're talking like Green Tree, and I just made a post here, I put a tweet in the chat. You've been to Senior Bowl. What's that day one kind of first impression mean to these scouts and these general managers? Because people think it's like the game that people get excited about, but it's not really.
No, the practice is what matters. And look, day one, it's always the first impression is very important from a physical standpoint. If a guy comes out ready to go immediately and doesn't need any sort of adjustment period, it makes a big impact. Now you want to see this consistency. You can't just come out and dominate today and not bring it the next couple days, right? Because it literally, if he doesn't put up this sort of performance the next couple of days, then they'll say, well, he did it one day, he flashed, but we need to see it consistently. So it's important for him to continue to do this here the next couple of days. But really, it's just, for him, it's the fact that he's doing it against the best right now, right? So the health the first couple of years of Miami was not great. He did it at a very high level this year. And I actually had a scout tell me last week that there's a sizable gap between Elijah Arroyo and Miami's next best prospect in this draft. And that's including Cam Ward. Now, Cam Ward will be the first player taken out of Miami's team, but that's not how a lot of these teams like rate players. If you're just talking about a football player, there's going to be a lot of teams that say that Arroyo is Miami's best prospect.
Yeah, and look, if you listen to the Canes Insight Daily podcast, I said that I was told that from someone around the program back in spring when people hadn't even seen Arroyo yet coming back fully from his injury. And I said, listen, there's a guy that's been around a lot of NFL first round picks who's saying that Arroyo's the best prospect on the team. This was back in, March or April. So here we go. Another tweet here. You saw the caption. Arroyo has been the best skill position player for his team. That's not my words. That is the words of a draft analyst, observer, fan sitting in the crowd. Obviously got a nice view of the one-on-ones. And he's saying that the best skill position player day one for his team is that man right there, Elijah Arroyo, our Beacon Adjusters prospect of the week. And, we'll get into some other guys here. First, I want to talk real quick about Beacon Adjusters. If your property has been affected by Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton, Beacon Adjusters Group is here to help. With years of experience handling storm-related damage, we work tirelessly to ensure you get the compensation you deserve. From assessment to settlement, our team of trusted experts will guide you every step of the way. Don't face the aftermath alone. Beacon Adjusters Group will restore your peace of mind. Call us today, 954-466-4224. That doesn't have to be Florida. You can be in Cali, Ohio, North Dakota, Texas. If you've had an issue with a storm, doesn't have to be the hurricanes I mentioned, any storm, call Beacon Adjustors Group. They're here to help, and they are experienced professionals. So, PF, I sent a few other. Go ahead.
So no, real quick. Anthony Manzano was asking a couple of times if Miami's lost Jason Taylor to the NFL. No, nothing official yet. You lost Joe Salavea either way. So whether or not Taylor stays or not, there could be another addition there.
Yep, no question about it. That's I think he's look. I'll tell you this: they went to recruit the Ty Wise's son, Grant Wise, highly valued, top of the board type interior line prospect from Pace, Florida. Jason Taylor was there, and he wasn't even, that wasn't even a player he's going to coach. It was just to kind of show his progress.
Yeah. So someone on staff the other day told me on Wise, we absolutely need to get that kid this year. So definitely a priority. So
PJ, roll through some of these texts that I sent in the private chats. I want to just catch people up on what's happening in these practices. So this is a text from the Shrine Bull. And again, these are not Canes fans at the practice. These are just draft fans at the practice. Someone saying that his overall top performer of the practices total on both teams is Jacoby George. So some people are saying that Jacoby George is the number one prospect, but the number one performer at the practices at any position, any team. And there you see some highlights here. But from New Era Prep, shout out to Kaz and that whole team. But that's pretty nice when someone
Mario was out there today too. I saw.
Yeah, Mario gave a big hug to Jacoby. So Jacoby George, Sam Brown's out there too. He's had some nice plays. Borregales kicking, interviewing teams are saying he's a top kicker around. Tyler Barron has had some nice reps. You've seen him highlighted, but I think the guy that you're really seeing buzz regarding the Shrine Bowl is Jacoby George. 168. That's the one negative. That's the size wasn't there. Now Restrepo weighed in was 5'9", 200. And there you see a nice rep one-on-one against USC corner Jalen Lane, I believe is the name. But look at that route from Restrepo. We've seen that a million times. Another guy who's getting a lot of buzz from today's practice. Again, this is just happening. So we're just scrolling Twitter and throwing out these tweets. Jalen Rivers was named by multiple people that were in attendance as one of the top performers during the offensive line, D-line. There you go. Foots the King, the noted draft analyst, Foots the King. Says the standouts from the drills: Josh Farmer, defensive tackle; Jalen Rivers, who was playing center, guard, and tackle, showing off the versatility. That's what he played there. Here, look at this rep here. This is at guard, I believe. Just kind of tossing this guy to the side. The versatility, showing that, the one-on-one ability. His interviews are going to be outstanding. One of the best student athletes that Miami's had in recent years. He's got size. He's not a combine warrior, but I don't think he's going to be terrible at the combine. I think he's going to test average, which is what he needs at his size. I am Pete knows this, a huge Jalen Rivers believer. He's not a dancing bear. He's not going to go out there and, look like a tight end running around. But because of his size, because of his strength, because of his IQ, because of his versatility, guys like that who don't, pass the athletic test like a first, top 10 pick might, they go to teams. They start for 10 years at all different types of positions, and they're extremely valuable players at the National Football League. I think Jalen Rivers is that kind of guy. I think you're talking about a guy who, starts over 100 games in the NFL because of what he brings to the table.
And you look at the fact that he could even play some center too. If a team really asked him to do it. Teams really don't love to keep pure centers as backups because a guy goes down, you keep 8 linemen normally. So you need a guy who can play more than just center. So if he can play either guard spot, probably play right tackle in a pinch for you, and then center as well if need be. That could be his best position.
Yep, that's something he practiced at Miami. Never really had to see it due to emergency, but he practiced it at Miami, and then he was ready to go at this game because he's playing at the game. Pull up the latest tweet I posted because this is something we've talked about in the past ourselves, from you talking to scouts even before the season. This is Kyle Krabs, somebody who, I don't know if he works for Pro Football Focus. I think he's been around the block. He's on Locked On Dolphins. He does a lot of stuff.
He's the 33rd team.
33rd team. That's right. So 33rd team, legit organization, media organization. It's got a lot of NFL executives in it. So this is not just some random fan. Some big takeaways I have from the first skill group is the build of the players. So this is Miami strength and conditioning program, Coach Feld, right? Miami wide receiver Xavier Estrepo built more like a running back than some of the running backs. Arroyo moving excellent at 250 plus, huge for him. We talked about that, Pete. You mentioned that you talked about.
I said this like a year plus ago, I feel like.
Right. That Restrepo is almost a running back playing receiver. And I think that's what separates him from like the Wes Welkers of the world and guys like that. Obviously, he'd love to have that kind of career. But just, the typical slot that he's compared to is a slimmer guy who also returns punts, which Restrepo, that's a negative for him. He doesn't return punts. But he does have that running back build more so than everybody. Appreciate that, Rocco. Smash that like button. He has that running back build, and he's a big play player, even though he's not a 4-4 guy. Restrepo averaged over 16 yards a catch this year, which when you look at guys in Power 4 who average over 16 yards a catch and over 1,100 yards, you're talking about the Marvin Harrisons, the Roma Dunses, like first-round picks, right? It's hard to have that much of that high of an average at the Power 4 level while also going over 1,100 yards. Go look at the list going back 10 years. I mean, you're talking about first rounder. The guys like, the Hunter Renfros, the guys that he's been compared to did not have that kind of dominant production when you really look at the numbers. And it's not, look, scouting is more than just numbers, right? It's more about traits. But when your company are guys that are first-round picks, I think that's pretty telling.
New King God asking, he says, random question, why has Ryan Rodriguez never been given a chance at the center position? 850 Kane says Rodriguez stays hurt. And that's exactly what I was going to say. There's a lot of people who are huge fans of Ryan Rodriguez in there and think that he has a chance, like the way we saw Markel Bell this year, I think, where people are like, well, where's he going to play on this line? He was going to start and be heavily in the rotation last year before that ankle injury that he had at UF. And he has a couple years of eligibility. I definitely think he's someone who's going to be in the mix to play a lot.
Yep. Yeah. I love Ryan Rodriguez. I think he started the first game of the year, which, by the way, think back to if you go watch University of Florida against LSU, you watch University of Florida against Ole Miss. You look at that defensive line and what they did to the opposing offensive line. Then you look at what they did against Miami with Jalen Rivers, who we talked about at left tackle, and then Ryan Rodriguez, who we're talking about now at left guard. I mean, they didn't do anything. It was one of the worst pass rush performances against a Power 4 opponent that I've ever seen. UF against Miami. So a lot of that credit goes to the offensive line of Miami. Ryan Rodriguez started that game and would have continued to play a huge role in that number one offense last year if he didn't get hurt. So yeah, Rodriguez is good. I think it's just injuries. You want to make sure you have options there. But I think with Rodriguez, let's say he doesn't start at center, which I think he's going to get every chance to start at center. And I think he could start at center, but let's just assume he doesn't start at center for purposes of this hypothetical. And again, I think if I had to bet, I think he probably will beat out Brockermeyer. Just my personal opinion, no info. But let's say Brockermeyer gets hurt. Rodriguez is a starting center. Let's say, God forbid, Matthew McCoy gets hurt. Rodriguez starts. The same thing you saw against Florida. Inez Cooper, same thing. Let's say that Markel Bell gets hurt, God forbid. You could see McCoy potentially move to left tackle and then Rodriguez started at left guard. Same thing on the other side. If Mauanoa got hurt, McCoy moves over there. Ryan Rodriguez steps in at left guard. Now you still have Sampson. You still have Tommy Kinsler, guys that you want to develop. So I'm not saying this is exactly how it would go, but it could go that way because you have a guy in McCoy who I think in his heart of hearts is really a tackle. And that's what he wants to play in the pros. And I think the coaches believe he is a tackle. But because Mauanoa and Bell, Bell's really a tackle only, and Mauanoa is your best player. So I think because of that, those guys are a tackle. But if one of them goes down, you can move McCoy over and Rodriguez goes in at guard. So even though Rodriguez is not your backup tackle, he kind of functions that way as your next man up if a tackle gets hurt. So utility infielder, Ryan Rodriguez.
Ozell Hall says SJ Alafatuli's next center up. I think we all are big believers in him, without a doubt.
Yeah, we love SJ Alafatuli. I talked to somebody connected to the recruiting department who said he's the best player in the class, period. Don't go any further. He's the best football player we brought in. So really excited.
I think they'll find out a way to get, they'll figure out a way to get him on the field.
Yeah, even if he's just playing, fullback. By the way, I'm looking at again. So yeah, a lot of love for Jacoby George, which is great to see. Again, I'm just scrolling through Twitter here. A lot of people who are at Shrine Bowl are saying that he was the best guy out there. And he's just getting a lot of attention. But man, yeah, Arroyo. So Fannon's out there, who is a lot of people say is the other top tight end in attendance. And for people that are there, they're saying that Fannon, this Harold Fannon from Bowling Green, put up huge numbers in Arroyo. They're saying like they look different. Right. Arroyo just, if you've seen him up close, this guy he's big, but he's not bulked up. He's just a big athletic looking dude. And apparently just watching him move and Fannon move, according to people in attendance, there's a big gap between those two players. And that's one of the things, Pete, you know this area more than me as far as being at the Senior Bowl, kind of seeing how people react to things. That here's Jalen Rivers here with another nice rep. Draft Network pointing that one out.
The thing about Jalen Rivers, man, this is no surprise that he's doing this to me, because the thing at Senior Bowl is a lot of it is these guys come out there sometimes starstruck, wide-eyed, some of these smaller school guys. Jalen Rivers playing at Miami, he's played against the best. He has played a lot of football, right? And again, the versatility, he's not, when they're asking him to move from the left side to the right side to play a tackle, some of these guys have only played one spot, and this is the first time they're being asked to be moved. So like, this is a huge day for him, and hopefully he keeps it up. Like you said, I don't know if he's going to test off the charts, which offensive line teams tend to draft these guys in the first 3 to 4 rounds based on traits, but whoever takes this guy is getting someone very, very reliable, and someone who's gonna play a long time.
Yeah, and you see guys in the pros that are not testing monsters on every single team, that just they hang around because they're big, they're strong, and they're smart. Those are and versatile. So check for Jalen Rivers, a shot put champion in high school, a big guy who's not fat.
It's hard to really think of a time where Jalen Rivers was getting beat badly consistently, right? Like I'm sure someone in the comments will say, well, the game 2 years ago against XYZ, but like, it's hard to think of moments where like consistently he was a liability. It just never happened, it seemed like, throughout his career.
And he was a left tackle, right? So let's say he plays guard in the pros. He was left tackle and holding up. We played Texas A&M, and they got like 5-star pass rushers all over the place. Shamar Stewart from Miami, from Monsignor Pace, probably going to be a first-round pick this year. And they didn't do anything to TVD that year.
Rocco asking how many NFL draft picks we looking at this year, guys. Can't remember the last time we had so many high picks possible. There's going to be a good amount of picks. I don't think there's going to be a lot of high picks. I think you're looking at Ward and Arroyo as potential first rounders, and I think you're going to see a big drop off after that. Like I was just saying, Ward's going to go top 10. Arroyo has a good chance to go late first round, maybe even higher, depending on how this continues to shake out, as a top 2 or 3 tight end. But after that, I don't know how high some of these other guys are going to go. So I think 9 to 10 draft picks, potentially 7 to 8 on the lower end, 9 to 10 on the higher end. But I don't know how many top 100 picks outside of Ward and Arroyo.
Yep. By the way, appreciate you, Brandon. Hit that like button. It's not hard. Yeah, like and subscribe really helps us out. If you're watching from Twitter, please subscribe. We're on every day. Really appreciate the support. So with Arroyo, just to jump, I agree with what you said, Pete. So yeah, look, if Arroyo goes first round, that'd be incredible. I think he's a first round player. I've been saying it since the spring. This is a first round tight end. I've seen all these guys on Greentree. I saw Bubba Franks on Greentree. I saw Jeremy Shockey's first practice on Greentree when no one knew who he was. And there was just like some white guy wearing the 88, and they were trying to figure out who he was, and caught every single pass. I seen Greg Olson on Greentree from the beginning. Kellen Winslow, David Njoku, you name it. I've seen all these guys. To me, Arroyo's in that category when he's healthy, which he is now. So that, to me, he is a first-round player. This is one of the best tight end drafts in recent memory. Daniel Jeremiah is, to me, one of the top NFL draft guys. He's at the Senior Bowl for NFL Network, commentating on it right now. He had Arroyo 49th, I want to say, in his initial top 50, which would put him in that second-round range. He had Colson Loveland from Michigan and Tyler Warren in his top 10 overall, which is really high for tight ends. And he had Mason Taylor, of course, Jason Taylor's son, Zach Thomas's nephew. Jason Taylor married Zach Thomas's sister. So Hall of Fame bloodlines on both sides. The LSU tight end originally from St. Thomas Aquinas here in Broward County. Those three were ahead of Arroyo. And I think all three of those guys are going to go high too. I just think you're going to see a lot of tight ends go high because even though it's not the most valuable position where, like defensive ends are flying off the board, corners, tackles, quarterbacks, when it's a good tight end draft, smart teams go get tight ends. That's what, to me, smart teams do when a draft is deep in a position. You get a player in that position because you're going to get somebody good. And with the tight ends, to me, like I said, I understand why Tyler Warren's considered the top tight end in the country. I understand why Colson Loveland's considered where he is. I understand why people like the bloodlines of Mason Taylor. I've said it on Twitter. I've said it on the show. To me, the best tight end of the draft, when you talk about size, fluidity, hands, he didn't drop a ball ever. If you remember Elijah Arroyo dropping a pass, let me know. He's a very underrated blocker. I would say, aside from Warren, he's the best blocker of all those guys. Mason Taylor's pretty good too, but Arroyo's certainly as good or better. His motor's insane. You saw him run down that guy against Virginia Tech, running halfway across the field. He's got the best speed out of all those guys. To me, he is the best one. And I think this Senior Bowl week is going to move him up the charts because, Pete, I'm looking at all these Senior Bowl performers lists. He's number one on all of them, the ones that are coming out as we record. The best performer in the Senior Bowl usually goes day one, right? I mean, that's kind of what happens when you do it day in and day out.
Yeah. He's got to match it. He can't go out there and run way slower than they think. I mean, because look, like the reality of how this process works, not to get too deep into the weeds, but Cam Kitchens, using him as an example last year, right? Teams expected him to run slow. The Rams are an organization that they don't look at 40 times. They go more on GPS. Teams expected him to go slow. That was going to hurt him always. If he ran out there and ran like a 4.5, he would have been a first round pick because he would have surpassed their expectations big time. If Arroyo, who they think is fast, goes out there and runs way slower than what they're expecting, it's going to hurt him. If he confirms what they think he is, and he goes and runs in the 4.5s, right, which I think he's going to do pretty easily there. Mid 4.5s, I think lower by some of the stuff we're seeing. Then it's going to confirm and continue to help his case. This process, there's multiple steps to it. This is step one. There's the combine. There's pro day. There's the interview process, which I expect him to do very well with. But this is step number one. Yes. So this is big. Now you just gotta keep passing the each step of the process with flying colors. I feel like I'm back in that mode again, man. I feel like I'm talking to a recruit.
There you go. You got me ready to sign up. But no, I think Arroyo's going to run fast, right? So
Agreed.
Again, I've seen the guy. You know how these coaches look at players, and like this guy, a lot of this is about body typing. When we say body typing, that means you see him in person, because it's one thing to have the measurements, which are important, but sometimes you see guys and they just don't look to their measurements, right? And that they get downgraded. Pete, you're around scouts. How much do scouts talk about body types and things of that nature?
Oh, I mean, it's everything in the evaluation process. And it's funny because I saw a tweet on Arroyo yesterday where someone saw that I think he weighed in at 251. And one of these analysts was like, wow, that's big for Arroyo if he can keep that weight on and play at it. But like, I don't know what Arroyo was weighing this year. I don't think it was much off from 251. I don't think he's like put on weight, but I think when some people see him up close and they realize, wow, this guy's bigger than I thought because he's moving like a smaller guy. That's when the body type with the tape marries and these scouts are able to say, okay, this matches what I saw on tape. And that's why you can't just look at the box score. You can't just look at guys running by people on tape. You have to match all this stuff up with the times in terms of testing with the body types up close. And that's why it's an inexact science because there's so many different variables to this process.
Yeah, I'll tell you a pretty close science. That is Miami Hurricane tight ends, right?
Yeah.
Jimmy Graham, I didn't mention him before. Clive Walford didn't really make it very long in the pros, but he was a third-round pick. I actually remember him tearing up the Senior Bowl back when it was his turn. So Miami tight ends are pretty good bet to at least play. And usually when the good ones are good, They, when the good ones are out there in Miami, those guys really are excellent professionals. David Njoku, one of your former clients there at FRM, one of your firm's former clients.
No, he's still a client. He's still a client.
Still a client, Pro Bowler, right? So, if you can ask me to compare Njoku to Elijah Arroyo and Pete, we've had this conversation in the control room going back to last spring, a year ago at this time almost. I said I love Njoku. His explosiveness is unique. Talk about body type. The guy looks like Clark Kent. But in terms of the fluidity, the consistency as a receiver, I think Arroyo's further ahead, in my opinion.
Yeah, at this stage, you could definitely say that now. Njoku obviously is a freak of nature, and I think has turned himself into one of the better blockers in the league, which people look at him as just a receiving tight end, but to me, and from, based on talking to people, he's turned himself into a top 10 blocker at the position in the league. And what makes him dangerous is he can be used as a receiver as well. So it's not just like when he goes in there, there's certain tight ends that are going in there as blocking tight ends, right? And they know the defense knows that they're not going out to run a route. That's what Arroyo brings to the table here too, potentially, is that he's one of the best blockers on the Miami team last year, talking to some of the players. So he brings that element to the table without a doubt.
Yep. No, 100%. And by the way, so I'm reading a report here from Kane Sports saying that Etheridge is actually going to be the cornerback coach. I'll confirm that. We just went online. I didn't talk to anybody. The news broke. I jumped right on here. I'll dig in more, but I could see, based on just some initial messages I received, that potentially there's a cornerback coach and a safeties coach. Etheridge, in that case, seems more likely to be the corner coach. We'll see on the safeties coach. I know Nick Monroe's a name that's been mentioned at that position from Minnesota. So we'll see if there's a safeties coach and a cornerbacks coach, or if there's one DB coach. I would probably bet on one cornerback coach and one safeties coach, with Etheridge more likely to be corner in that arrangement.
I texted a scout earlier who I'm supposed to get on the phone with later, but I asked him if any of the Canes stuck out, and he's at Senior Bowl. He said Arroyo did. He did have a drop, though. He said, good effing athlete, bro.
Yeah,
so
the drop,
athleticism. Yeah,
the drop.
The drop doesn't show up. I don't know. I don't know if the drop.
I saw it. Yeah, there's a clip of it. It was. I mean, it was Dylan Gabriel made a great throw, and he was like 50 yards downfield. It was it would have been an awesome play, and he had it. I mean, it was a drop. It would hit him right in the hands. He just dropped it.
He said Damian didn't get many reps. Too many running backs here. Restrepo was good, but wouldn't say he was the best or top of the group.
Yep, that sounds about right.
So this is directly from a scout at the Senior Bowl right now.
Yeah. So look, again, I'm if you look at the Arroyo check marks, he passed the measurements. Good effing athlete, bro, from that per NFL scout source for Pete. He ran about 100 yards to run someone down against Virginia Tech to show his effort is exceptional. One of the best effort plays we've seen in Miami is going to be shown to players probably for as long as Mario Cristobal is a coach in the meeting room. I bet freshmen probably watched that play when they came in. And he's a pretty good blocker. He's not a non-blocker at all. He's actually pretty tough in blocking. You saw how he ran the ball this year and how many times Arroyo was asked to block. So add that all up. To me, that's a first-round pick. That's a Pro Bowl tight end if he goes to the right system. It's Kansas City in the back of that first round. Let's say Warren and Loveland are off the board. Can you imagine this guy with Mahomes for 10 years? That'd be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah.
Former tight end in high school, by the way. He switched it to receiver/tight end during high school, but earlier in his high school, he was a quarterback, a left-handed quarterback. Travis Kelce, another guy that was a quarterback in high school, kind of made him natural in that route running. Of course, we saw him throw a pass, right? Cam Ward,
Florida State.
Yeah, so he threw a touchdown against the Knowles. So I'm not saying he's Kelce. I'm just saying where the Chiefs are going to end up picking and what they need with Kelce. Theoretically, I don't know, he's going to be in Canary Islands with Taylor Swift for the next 5 years. Who knows what he's going to do? But you need to replace that position. So Arroyo makes a lot of sense there. Just early speculation here. I agree with this comp, by the way, from Marley Bell, that Arroyo reminds him of Winslow. That would be, of all the guys we're talking about, that's who he reminds me the most in terms of just being physical, being in really good shape, but having good size and being a true receiver at the position with toughness. Hopefully it's just on the field, of course.
Goes without saying.
What's up with these tight ends, man? They're all maniacs. All right, what else we got here? Yeah, so it was a great question by Rocco, and that's I think going to be one of the interesting things is how many tight ends. I think if you're Miami, you're looking at 10 as your number that you would love to hit. Not just for the kids, obviously you want them all to get drafted.
You mean draft picks? You said how many tight ends? I'm like, what?
Oh, God, I'm old. How many draft picks? You'd love to hit 10. I think that would
Sam
be
Brown.
Sam
Brown has a good shot too.
Borregales is kind of a wild card. Simeon Barrow's the one I'm watching because he's I guess he's injured. He's not playing in these All-Star games. It was reported he was invited to the Shrine game, but we haven't seen him. So, we'll see with that one.
From my understanding, he was playing pretty hurt at the end of the season for Miami. Their D, and if you're a guy like him who's probably a late round pick right now, you got to get healthy for one part of this process at least, whether it's the combine. I'm not sure if he has an invite yet, or at the very least pro day, because I believe he was dealing with a knee issue. So you got to get healthy so you can show them something. And if you're going to be 75% for these games, there's no point to do. You got to get healthy.
Yeah. And he was, I thought, first team all ACC. So from a Miami standpoint, everything you could ask for a post-spring defensive tackle transfer. I mean, that's as good as you're going to get, I guess, unless you're his teammate, Derek Harmon, and you go first round. But beyond that, that's as good as you're going to get from his post-spring transfer. Tape is an NFL guy to me. I mean, not like a first-round pick, but, if you like undersized type of defensive tackles that with twitch and effort, I could see him fitting in there. We'll see on that. But Borregales, Sam Brown, Tyler Barron certainly has the tools of first round really has the tools of a day one, day two. The tape, particularly the end of the year, probably more undrafted, right? So maybe day three, if a team feels good about the effort and the person. Jacoby, I think he's helped himself. The weight is a question with Jacoby. Under 170 is not where you want to be, but he's performed. So that will give him a chance. And he had a good senior season, aside from, of course, the moment against Syracuse that reminded everybody of what they didn't like about him. Who else are coming to swing guys? You mentioned Sam Brown. I think, Martinez, Restrepo, Ward, Arroyo, Rivers. You feel good about those guys getting picked. Francis Maunoa, Kiko Maunoa had a pretty good Shrine Bowl as well.
Kiko will be a borderline guy because that position is just like inside linebacker. Some teams would rather just grab a guy as a preferred, priority free agent. We'll see how he runs. That's going to be a big part of it with him, and then scheme fit as an inside linebacker as well. That'll be important for him, but because there will be half the teams who just don't have a need for a player like him.
Yeah. So, when it comes to special teams, that's what's going to be something he does. He did pretty good in the pass defense at the Shrine Bowl based on some of the clips we've seen. So, by the way, I just got a call on Zac Etheridge with some scoop. So, Pete, you can carry us for like 2 minutes here?
Sure.
All right. Kick me out of here.
I'll remove you and then all right, guys. So we'll be waiting here for D to come back. He says 2 minutes, probably more than that, but it's all good. So Miguel Menendez says 3 is nice, man. The Angry Ape says JG Jacoby George is going to be great in the league. I'm a big fan of his game. Someone who gets open pretty easily. At 168, you worry about play strength, but it wasn't necessarily something we saw as an issue at Miami. He's so slippery as a receiver. It's almost like he's a run. It's almost like he makes guys miss without the ball, obviously like a running back in open space. And you see some of the stuff he does as a route runner. So, I'm looking at him as a guy who gets drafted 5th, 6th round type of thing. All right, D, already back here.
Yeah, no, because I it was quick. I just basically the word talking to Auburn people, very smart, good X's and O's, very good communicator both to the players and to the media. Good, just good communication skills, right? He has that presidential style to him. And then they're saying also a good recruiter as well. So X's and O's, recruiting, and then just overall communication would be all checks in his favor. Ambitious guy, trying to move up in his career.
Yeah, and I mentioned in the beginning, just in my dealings with recruiting a couple Auburn guys, they trusted him as a coach, which would go hand in hand with the communication aspect of things that you just mentioned.
Yeah, great question from Justin Green. Does Elijah Alston have a chance to get drafted? I think the injury hurt him. I talked to somebody who was NFL, worked for an NFL team when Alston was playing pretty good in the beginning of the year, and he said he had a chance if he ran well. I think the injury probably hurt him. Let's see if he runs well. But look, no one expected Jaden Davis to get picked this time last year, and then we were there at Pro Day. P. I was standing right next to you, and he had a really nice performance, and then surprised everybody getting picked.
Rocco says, "Let's hear the negatives." D Money.
I'll work. I'll keep digging. I'm sure, given the fact that he left there, ego clashes. Who knows? I mean, those things happen. It wasn't a performance thing. I don't think the unit didn't play very bad, so it wasn't. It couldn't have been. I doubt it was performance based. I've not seen that at all. All right, Pete. Well, listen, everybody, appreciate you. Over 1,500 on, like and subscribe to this show. We are on every single day, so we'll be on tomorrow. CanesInsight.com. Check it out for free. Go ahead and sign up. Talk all day. And by the way, we have an announcement here. Always going to talk about the team store, Pete, as you know. But big news yesterday, right? We had the schedule release. So Canes fans, it's time to get ready. The football schedule is officially here. 8 home games this year. 8 home games. That's not every season. You got showdowns against Notre Dame on August 31st, Florida on September 20th, 4 ACC matchups. Don't miss a second. Grab your season tickets now. MiamiHurricanes.com/football tickets to lock in your seats today. That's MiamiHurricanes.com/football tickets if you want to be able to enjoy some of those 8 home games, man, and some of those marquee off-season games. Out of conference games. I need my coffee.
Here you go.
And there's a team store. Miami HTS.
No, this is
that's MiamiHurricanes.com with the Hurricanes tickets. There you go. Get your tickets at MiamiHurricanes.com/football tickets. Boom. No need to get the markup on StubHub and all that. Just go straight to the source. Season tickets on sale now. All right, fellas.
And then Miami HTS. Here you go.
Hey, yep, Miami HTS, MiamiHTS.com, and Miami Hurricane Team Store. Promo code INSIGHT20. You get 20% off your first item at Miami's official apparel provider. Look at all that great gear. Pete, someone likes your jacket. What's the jacket?
This one. This is an old one, man. This is like Under Armour. I don't even know if they sell this anymore.
It looks like one of those like Buddy Ryan Eagles jackets.
Yeah, it does. It does, like Randall Cunningham era.
That's right. All right, fellas and ladies, appreciate you. We will be on tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be more news to discuss. You still don't have, if he's the cornerback coach, Etheridge, you still need a safeties coach. We'll see what happens at linebacker, whether that looks like it'll probably be Heatherman, defensive line, see how that shakes out. A lot to talk about, and we'll keep watching this staff closely. Until then, go Canes.
Go Canes.